Hi everyone. In this video we will talk about Azure App Service in depth. This is Mustafa Al-Zagbi. I'm Senior Technical Evangelist at Microsoft. So the App Service is a cloud app service that integrates everything you need to build quickly and easily web, mobile, and API application for any platform or any device. So if you are thinking building a website, web application, an API, or a backend for your mobile app, so the app service should be your choice. Because by provisioning the app service is a cloud application service that can scale, you can secure, and you can manage it easily through the Azure portal. So the app service basically allow you to build different types of application, not just web. It's even mobile backend or even APIs. Definitely the app service you can use different programming languages. So you can use .NET, Node.js, PHP, Python, Java, or any supported programming languages. And you can use your favorite IDE to build the app service in Azure. And then once you basically done with development and you would like to publish your app service, you will be able to take benefits of all out of the box feature that we have on Azure portal. And basically you can scale up or down on managed security or configuration or troubleshooting for your app service through the portal. And also if you are building a mobile app, a lot of users that are asking for how can I build push notifications for my mobile app. So the app service, you just need to build, basically you have to provision a mobile app service, and basically this allows you to basically create a push notification no matter if you are building an iOS, Android, or even a universal Windows 10 app. So Microsoft has created a website that allows you to basically provision an app service in 3 steps. So the first step is basically selecting the application type. So as we mentioned that the Azure App Service has 4 types. One is the web application, which is a standard web application that you want to basically provision. Again, you can use Node.js, PHP, to build a web application, or Ruby on Rails. In addition to .NET, you can even build a mobile app, which is a backend for your mobile application, API application if you want to build a pure RESTful API. So you're going to go with this option, API app, or the Logic API if you would like to build a workflow application that basically integrates from, for example, data from different sources and you want to do some processing on it. So you go with the Logic app. So this is the first option, which is selecting the application type. So the second option is once you select the application type, the website gives you all the available templates. So for example, if you selected a web application, it will show you, oh, you want a Node.js or a TypeScript application template. So once we create the application type, the website already preloaded with the application templates that you can pick. So once you select the template, the application, basically the website provides you with a temporary URL for your website. So you see here, even in the screenshot on the screen, that basically the website has created a temporary URL that's available for you up to 24 hours. And basically you can copy the code. You can use Visual Studio Online or even download the application content, or even use a publishing profile if you want to publish it from Visual Studio, or even basically integrate with your Git repository. So basically you can take the code and edit it. So basically you take the template out of the box. So this is the scenario. So you already provisioned the application, which is a shell, which doesn't have anything. So you want to basically write code and see the update. Basically if you like using Git, so basically you have a URL for the remote repo that you can connect to it, and you can update and comment changes to it, and you will be able, by clicking on the site that has been generated for you, you'll be able to see your changes. So this is basically the easiest way to basically try out Azure App Service in 3 steps. And if you go, basically the URL on the screen, which is tryappservice.azure.com. So this is the URL that if you go to it right now, you'll be able to try the Azure App Service, and you can check out what types of application you can try on Azure for free up to 24 hours. And you can basically has a sense of what kind of feature that we give you out of the box and how easy it is to provision application on Azure. So let's look at this website. Go to tryappservice.azure.com, tryappservice.azure.com. So I'll be able to go to the website that I was showing to you on the website. So you go here, you see that the 3 steps. So you see here that you can create a web application, you can create a mobile application, you can select an API app or a logic app, and each one of these types of application, it will basically, the site in the next step will basically load it up with some predefined template. So let's go ahead and click on web application and go ahead and click on next. So once we click on next on the web application, you're gonna see all types of application. You can go with the empty sites or basically ASP.NET with Azure Search integrated, or a starter site template for ASP.NET, Java Coffee Shop, Express.js, MVC, or we can go ahead and create an empty site. So let's go ahead and click. So this is the next step, which is selecting a template. Once we click on create, it basically can ask you basically log in first to create an app. So basically this will be provisioned under your account. So you can log in with each one of these accounts. So let's go ahead and click on Microsoft account. I want to log in with Microsoft account. And then you will see here the link that the application has been created for you. And if you click on here, that the site is up and running. And basically all the options here, if you want to edit the application on Visual Studio Online, or if you want to download the web application content, if you want to download the publishing content, so you can publish it from Visual Studio, or even you can use any development IDE to use Get to push the comment basically, or commit changes to the code repository. And here basically, if you want to extend it, you can extend it up to 24 hours. So this is basically shows you that even if you don't have an Azure subscription, you should be able to try out the Azure App Service for free. So as we have shown earlier in this presentation, that if you don't have an Azure subscription, still you can try the Azure App Service for free. But for most of the professional users and companies and most of the Microsoft partners that they have already an Azure portal, you still be able to basically provision an Azure App Service to build your web applications, API application, logic application, mobile app applications through the Azure portal. So if you go to the new portal and you click on web and mobile, you will see the same 4 application templates is already, or basically the application types that we have already available for you on the Azure portal. So you'll be able to see the web application, the mobile application, the API application, and the logic app. So if you see here, basically it's the same application types that you can build that we have shown to you on the app service site that we showed to you earlier if you don't have an Azure subscription. But if you do have Azure subscription, you can go ahead and go to the Azure portal and you'll be able to provision all the application types that we have mentioned earlier. So here we'll talk about once you provision an app service in Azure, there are a lot of intelligent solutions and intelligent basically features that comes out of the box with it. So it's not about pushing code and you basically struggle to scale the application, or it's hard to troubleshoot if there's a problem, or if you want to scale it up, all these options that comes along with the Azure App Service. So that's why we recommend, if you are trying to build any solution with Azure, you try with the app service, make a full capacity, make make use of all the features that we have and all the useful features that we have out of the box. And if it doesn't work, or basically you need more control, so in this case you can go with the virtual machine option. But the Azure App Service will go through all the features that comes out of the box. So the first thing is the support and troubleshooting. So if you select the app service that you provision on Azure, so you will see a section called support and troubleshooting that gives you logs, that check the health for the application. You can troubleshoot if there is any issues, and also you can support, basically you can submit a support ticket. So that's all for any app service that you provision within Azure. And also, if you look at the second screenshot, that you will see that you will be able to scale up or down, and even you'll be able to scale out by provisioning number of instances. For example, when you hit, for example, 80% compute power. And all these features about the scaling or scalability or even troubleshooting and support that comes with the app service. So also, if you want to once you provision an app service, so also it comes with any app service that you provision Azure, there's a Kudu service that you can provision, or basically you can access easily by adding SCM to your website URL. So for example, if your website is, for example, my demo site, Azure Web Applications.net. So when you go to the website, just after your website name, which is my demo site dot, just before Azure websites, you just can add dot scm dot Azure websites.net. So here you will be able to access the code or service. So also we have a very intelligent continuous integration where the code can be automatically be pushed from your code repository, even if it's not a Microsoft code repository. So for example, some customer that are using Visual Studio Team Services or OneDrive or local Git repository or GitHub, Bitbucket, Dropbox, if you are using any one of these code repository, you will be able to automatically push code that when you commit changes, these code, a backend job will basically get the latest, compile the code, and push it to the Azure App Service. Also, we give you access for the FTP client. So if you would like to access your app service through the FTP client, still you'll be able to basically set up the deployment credentials to to share with your team if you want to access the FTP, access your web application or the API through an FTP client. Also, one of the greatest feature that we have with the app service, the ability to create deployment slots. So the deployment slots, think about it like I created my website or my web application that's my demo site. So my demo site, I need to have a deployment slot for the development edition and for the UAT, for the staging, and for production. So you can easily manage the deployment slots. Each one of these deployment slots will have basically a unique URL and even will have a unique settings. So you will be able to basically have a different version of your website based on the stage of your web application. So for example, every daily build, you can push the code in development, so the QA team comes next day, and if they give you the green light for this build, you can push it to the QA, and then you can push it from the QA to the staging, and you can push it then from the staging to production, and therefore it's much easier for you to manage the code through the deployment slots, so because it's self-contained within the app service that you provision. And also, if you are using Visual Studio Online or Visual Studio Team Services, you can integrate all the features that we have on the build server within the app service that you have in Azure. So we have also some cool features also when you provision app service. For example, that you can provision all the virtual network configuration. You can even connect to a hybrid connection, so you can connect to an on-premise network that you have. Also, you can manage custom domains within your app service and even SSL certificate. Even you can schedule backups, which is a major need for a lot of companies that they want to have a schedule, let's say daily or weekly or bi-weekly backups for the stuff that we push to the cloud. So you can even manage the scheduled backup, and you can drop it either in an FTP or an account or a storage account or somewhere else as you need, but it's the cool thing is how to automate it and to schedule the automated backups. And this comes, by the way, not just for the app service, even for any if you provision any database as well, you'll be able to schedule the backup. So let's jump in and work with the app service setting that we have in Azure Portal. You will see here that I have a few things that I have provisioned under my account. So here we're gonna go ahead and provision an app service within my subscription. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on new, and then you will see all the options here, the compute, web and mobile, data storage, and all the other options that we have. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on web and mobile, and you will see here the 4 app basically types that you can build with Azure App Service. So you will see here that the web application, if you want to build any secure and flexible web application, mobile app, API app, and logic apps. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on web app. So let's give it a unique name. So I'm saying here it's Azure App Service in depth 1. So it's a unique. So here you can select the subscription. You can even here select a resource group. So let's create a one. It's called demo. So resource group called demo, and then the surface plan location. Let's go with what we have right now, and then I'm gonna go ahead and click on new create. So once I go and click create, it will take basically a couple of minutes to provision the web application, and then I'll be able to access. So you see here that there is a progress bar, and there's a progress icon here that the web application that's being provisioned. And once the application, in a couple of minutes, the application will be provisioned, and then we're gonna go ahead and check out all the feature that comes out of the box with Azure App Service. So you see here that the application has been, the Azure App Service in-depth 1 has been provisioned. I can click on the link to make sure that it's up and running. So you will see here that the application will be up and running here. And definitely it's gonna be just a, a simple website, which is an empty. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through all the features that we have described in this video. So the first thing here that you see under the support troubleshoot, that you'll be able to have troubleshooting. You'll see all the troubleshooting features, and you'll be able here, so you can see, you can click out, okay, I want to check, for example, the live HTTP traffic to see what's happening on my website, or I can select, for example, the audit logs to see all the logs that I have on the web application. I can check the health for the application to see what's the status for the web app so far since I provisioned it. And that's a good thing to check from once in a while, just to make sure that everything is up and running. And even you have here an option to, if you would like, if there's an issue that you can't figure it out, you'll be able to submit a request, a support ticket to Microsoft. Here basically we have some general settings, so quick start and properties and application setting. I'm just going to take a moment and show you here the properties. So here the properties, it will show you all the information about, this is the URL, this is the outbound IP, this is even the FTP. If you want to access the FTP, this is the FTP URL, and it gives you all the information about the application that has been provisioned. And here, if you want to manage all the settings, or you want to override settings that you have, so you will be able to provision all the settings or override settings that you have already in the, if you already have it in your local and you want to provision it here, you will be able to add settings as well. So you can basically enable or disable the remote debugging. You can, select which platform, if you want to enable the WebSockets or not. All the feature you will be able through the application settings. So the application service plan, as we have seen on the presentation, that you will be able to scale up or scale out. So in the scale up, basically you can say, oh, I don't want to go with the premium one, which is 1 core with 1.75 GB of RAM. So I want to go with the core 2. So this is how you can scale up the resources that you have allocated for the web application. And by the way, this is recommended. If you want to see all the options, you can click on the view all, and you will be able to see all the options that we have on the portal. So this is how you can scale up. And the scale down as well. And yeah, if you don't want it will prompt you if you change something and you haven't hit save or select. So I basically ask you, would like to save? I say, no, I don't want to select, because I don't want to basically save the changes. So I'm fine with that. So here, let's go to the scale out. So when you click on the scale out, so you will be able to configure, when and how would you like to scale out when there is a workload on your web app, on the web application. So you can say an instant that I enter manually, or the CPU percentage. So you can say here, if the CPU percentage, the target is 80%, I want you to so this is the target that you want, and I want to add more. For example, I want to add, let's say, 2 instances or 3 instances, so this is the target range as well. So you can say, how would you like to scale out your web application. And even if you want to change the app service, you will be able to do this. So here, even if you want to schedule the backup, so you can click on the backup here, and you can say, oh, I want to, so basically to backup, you have to basically set up your storage, use storage, and then put the schedule, even the database, everything will be backed up for you. And even there's a lot of other options here about the publishing, continuous deployment. I was showing to you here in the presentation that a lot of people, they ask, oh, I would love to push code from my OneDrive. So you'll be able to push it from OneDrive or GitHub or Bitbucket or Dropbox or any other code repository here. And even the deployment, so the deployment credentials here, if you want to set up a username and password for the FTP. So if you want to use any FTP client and you want to access the FTP, access the web application through the FTP, you can set up the deployment credentials. So, or you can go to the deployment slots, and here you can define different deployment slots. So for example, I want to create a dev deployment slots, and you can say, oh, do you want to copy the configuration, or you want to don't clone anything? So I'm gonna get, no, I don't want to clone any settings, because I want to start from scratch. There's no settings, so I'll be able to go to each one of these deployment slots, and I'll put the settings as I want. For example, the connection string or any other settings that we have. So we can say here, I have another one, which is staging. So I'm gonna call it STG and don't clone anything. So we have development and we have staging. So this is how, think about it. So we already have the one which is production, and we have the same URL dash dev or dash staging or dash QA, and that's all, different, different basically slots, has its own settings, has its own properties as well. So if you see, I clicked here on the dev instance. So literally it's a brand new Azure App Service in depth. It's the development instance. And here you can do the same settings that we were talking about scalability settings, any type of things. You'll be able to set up the configuration for each one of these deployment slots. So let's go back to the original one. So I'm gonna go to the app service one. I click on the app service, and I like to go to the settings. So the settings already opened automatically. And then you have the publishing, and here if you want to custom domain and SSL, if you want to configure the traffic routing, or even if you want to set up the networking, either through the virtual networking or through the hybrid networking. So you will be able to set up all of that through the same settings. So here I'll go ahead and say so here if you want to set up the networking as well. So this is how you set up the networking if you want to connect with a different virtual network within your Azure subscription, or even if you want to connect with a hybrid subscription. And even here, if you want to include any web job within your app service, you'll be able to do that as well. So that's one of the great features that you can include for your Azure App Service, that you can even include web jobs as well.
The concept of workflows, more specifically automated workflows, has been around for a long time. Until recently, powerful workflow integration and creation tools were limited to business-specific, product-centric functions, like Microsoft BizTalk, or SharePoint-specific tools like Nintex or K2. With the popularity of more open, service-agnostic logic and workflow frameworks like IFTTT, these ideas have become powerful and now almost mainstream in product offerings such as Microsoft Flow, a new member of the Office 365 suite of products. The cool thing for developers is that all the power of Microsoft Flow and much more is at our disposal through Azure Logic Apps, part of the Azure App Service Suite. Azure Logic Apps are part of the Azure App Service Suite. The Azure App Service Suite also includes mobile apps, API apps, and web apps, and realistically, probably you should include function apps in that suite, although it's not really marketed that way. And the concept is that you design workflows that start from a trigger. They always start from a trigger, and then they execute a series of steps, securely invoking an app service. Now, an app service in this context is kind of a generic term. An app service can be your own webhook or your own API. It could be a connector that's already been created for you. And one of the beauties of Logic Apps is that all of the authentication and checkpointing and durable execution is handled for you because the services are already in place through Azure itself. Every Logic app is really a workflow. Logic Apps provide a graphical way to model your business processes as a series of steps or workflow. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that Logic Apps really are just a workflow. Now, these can kick off other workflows, but in general, Logic Apps are workflows. Managed connectors are created specifically to help you when you're connecting to and working with your data. There's a whole bunch of out-of-the-box managed connectors that we're going to look at. I mean, there's just a whole lot of managed connectors. You'll see. A trigger starts a new instance of a workflow. All Logic Apps start with a trigger. A trigger is going to be some action that happens somewhere. An email comes in, a file gets uploaded to SharePoint, something gets added to a blob storage, somebody tweets something. There are all kinds of scenarios that can be triggers, but a trigger is not the same as an action, and actions cannot always be triggers, and triggers cannot always substitute for actions. Every step that happens after a trigger in a workflow is called an action. Now, we may have conditions before we call those actions, like we may be looking at some data and we'll say, if this, then that. Or we might do some looping, like loop through some things, but then every time we loop through something, we're going to perform an action. And an action is always going to map to an operation in your managed connector or your custom API. So an action could be to call a webhook, or an action could be to upload a file, or an action could be to repost a tweet, or to send an email, or to send a text message via Twilio, or to send something to your Yammer conversation. All of those things are actions. And then again, there's the enterprise integration that we're not really going to cover in this session, but it's important to know that those enterprise integration connectors allow you to include validation, transformation, and all kinds of really powerful enterprise-based scenarios in your logic apps. For as long as developers have been writing code, the challenge has existed for exposing the services and logic in their solutions in ways that could be easily leveraged by other services and developers, and in ways that were secure, easy to integrate, and scalable. I recall personally back in the mid-90s trying to work with emerging technologies such as DCOM, MTS, and even SQL Server extensions like 4XML in an attempt to expose services and logic across platforms for reuse. Although the concept of application programming interfaces, or APIs, has been around forever, great efforts have gone into creating a balance between availability and security while managing the services themselves in a reasonable and standardized way. This is where Azure API apps come in. Azure API apps enable developers to create APIs any way they want, expose them any way they want, while allowing the Azure App Service Platform to handle the complexities of authentication, integration, packaging, discovery, and versioning. Azure API apps make it easy to develop, host, and consume APIs in the cloud, while allowing the Azure App Service to manage the complexities of security, access control, hybrid connectivity, and seamless integration with other services like Logic apps. But API apps are way more than just a way to group a set of APIs. API apps are really the Azure wrapper around an entire set of services that developers can draw on to create enterprise-level API solutions. So when we talk about APIs and API apps, we're still talking about some of the same concepts that you've probably been working with or are familiar with already. Ideas of creating and exposing and reusing web services, or exposing those web services in a RESTful way, or creating schemas to identify the methods and parameters of those services. We're also talking about some other cool things here. One important concept is that you could create or even upgrade your existing APIs to an Azure API app, and then the Azure API app service will handle authentication, all the way from simple access control up to enterprise-grade security, including hybrid scenarios, automatic SDK generation if you want to expose these to other down-level or third-party clients, standardized service integration so that you can really plug and play with these APIs and these API apps, versioning, scaling, all of the things you'd expect from Azure. This is really the blessing of the Azure API app concept, is that Azure, if you want it to, can handle all of the things that aren't related to just getting your work done. Now, of course, you can have fine-grained control over all of these pieces if you want to, but it's difficult to actually find a scenario where you need to go in and tweak a lot of these services that are exposed in the API app very much. Typically, out of the box with a couple of clicks and a few scenarios, Azure API services handle all of that complexity for you, so you can just focus on creating your APIs and exposing the data and business logic that you need to expose for your other services.